What's up guys, Sio here with week 7 in the NES. This week we are taking on CrazyRazey, coach of the Swindon Fletchlings. I kinda gotta go fast here because, spoilers, this is a pretty long, very in-depth battle, and I don't have the most time to record. So I'm gonna try to explain everything that I can, but just know that this is kind of a doozy of a battle. So starting off, we are bringing our new recruit Dodrio, Choice Scarfed with Tangled Feet, Jump Kick, Facade, Brave Bird, and Thrash. Tangled Feet is a cool ability that doubles your evasion if you get confused, basically. Thrash is a normal type move that's basically like Outrage, where you just get locked into it for 2 turns and then get confused. So the idea is once the ghosts are gone, once the ghost and Heat Train are gone, let me clarify. Thrash actually does a pretty decent amount to the other half of his team, if I can go for it. If not, Jump Kick, Facade, and Brave Bird actually do pretty decent coverage as well, so, and it also outspeeds everything on his team kind of by a mile, so it should be fine. Next up is probably one of the cooler Jirachi sets I've brought this season in my opinion. It's Psychium Z with Substitute, Psychic, Trick, and Charge Beam. Going move by move here. The idea is to get a substitute on a free switch or something, or like a recover or something. If he ends up playing passively or whatever. I can go for Charge Beam then, which is normally a move that has 70% chance to raise your special attack by 1, but because Jirachi has Serene Grace, which is an ability that doubles the chances of secondary effects, it actually has a 140% chance to raise special attack by 1, so it's kind of like Power Up Punch, but on the special side, I guess. And then Psychic and Trick. You may be wondering, first of all, why I'm even running Trick on a Z Crystal set, since you can't trick a Z Crystal. The point of this set is to potentially set up mid to late game and just start doing damage to stuff. Depending on what switches in and what he actually brought, I could go for a Z Trick over a Z Psychic. Z Trick raises Jirachi's speed by 2 and actually makes it so I can pretty much outspeed everything on his team. This isn't really relevant to the team that he brought, but he also has Mega Venusaur, Salamence, Heracross, Cobalion, and Claydol. And I was more afraid of Cobalion setting up a Rock Polish, or Salamence getting up a Dragon Dance or 2 or something. So I just wanted to make sure that I was prepared for that possible situation, I guess. And then if that doesn't end up happening and he ends up bringing a slow team like he did here, I can just go for a Z Psychic and kind of do a bunch of damage. So I'm max special attack, max speed, and max defense. I guess I forgot to say that Dodrio is also max attack, max speed, and a little bit of special defense. Next up is Tapu Fini. I guess this is actually Tapu Fini's first week too, now that I think about it. I'm doing this post-com a little bit late, obviously, so Tapu Fini's making the season debut with Leftovers, Taunt, Moonblast, Surf, and Reflect. Max HP, max speed, and a little bit of special attack with a special attack increasing nature. The stabs actually go pretty well against his team. Surf, it does a ton of damage to Heatran, and there's not really a lot that it can do it back, so I can pretty much just go for that. Taunt allows me to outspeed and taunt basically anything but a max speed, I believe, or at least Jolly Salamence, as well as pretty much any set from Clefable. I can also go for it against Sableye because Misty Terrain blocks Will-O-Wisp, and Sableye can't really touch Tapu Fini otherwise, unless I think it may get Acid Spray or something, but that'd be pretty gimmicky, and even then it'd need a couple of Acid Sprays to really do any significant damage. Next up after that is Mega Beedrill with Poison Jab, Drill Run, Knockoff, and Swords Dance. Again, he has a pretty slow passive team, so if I can catch him on a switch and get a free Swords Dance up, I can basically just punch everything on this team with Mega Beedrill. Nothing really wants to take either Poison Jab, Drill Run, or Knockoff, so hopefully I can get that off. Next up is Leftovers Donphan. I went a little more passive with it this week than normal. It has Toxic, Protect, Earthquake, and Ice Shard. Because I predict there to be a lot of switching and recovery just to make this game not drag out, but just try to make sure that things stay alive for as long as possible. I figure Toxic will be pretty good to wear down his stuff, especially as the game kind of progresses a little bit farther in. And then Earthquake is pretty nice for pretty much everything on his team, but Electros and Ice Shard was mostly there for Salamence, just in case, again, it got Dragon Dance up. I didn't plan on letting it get a Dragon Dance up, but you never really plan on letting a Salamence set up in your phase, so yeah. Finally, we have Colbur Berry Decidueye, Brave Bird, Roost, U-Turn, and Defog, max HP, max defense, and a little bit of attack. Basically, this set's kind of just meant to be a pivot as well as getting rid of rocks to make sure that Jirachi or Beedrill and Dodrio can come in pretty safely. There's not really, like, of all of the members that I have this week, Decidueye is probably the most useless, I would say. Especially since he has a couple of ghosts that kind of threaten me a little bit, especially since I don't have Leaf Blade for Jellicent. Hindsight, I probably should have, but Brave Bird allowed me to hit Heracross. Basically just stay in for that Heracross knockoff, and then just go for it from there, I guess. So he brought Clefable, Ambipom, Heatran, Sableye, Electros, and Jellicent, again to kind of cover what he left behind: Mega Venusaur, Salamence, Heracross, Cobalion, and Claydol. I was pretty scared of Mega Venusaur because it's really fat and it's kind of hard to take down. Like, even though I have a Jirachi, it's still pretty hard to take down. I'm guessing because I've brought Jirachi a lot, he didn't really want to bring it, but I was pretty surprised to see Sableye, honestly, because there's not really a lot that it can do to Tapu Fini. So I ended up actually leading Decidueye here because I can U-turn against pretty much anything. I expected him to lead Ambipom and just kind of go for a fake out or a knockoff or something, so I can take the knockoff thanks to a Colbur Berry and just U-turn out into something faster. If he goes for fake out, well, he wouldn't go for fake out, but if he goes for fake out, I know he's not Scarfed, but he obviously sends in Sableye here. Again, there's not really any reason for me not to just go into Tapu Fini here. Like, absolute worst case scenario, I think he goes for some kind of poison coverage, but I don't think he'd do that. Instead, he shows the Prankster Will-O-Wisp, which is nice, and honestly, like, a pretty big part of why I wanted Tapu Fini on my team. Like I said towards the end of last week's video, I had noticed that coaches kind of started to prepare for how physical my team was and try to bring status a lot to slow it down. Tapu Fini's terrain obviously blocks status, so it's pretty nice for that. So I don't want Clefable to come in for free basically at any point in this game, so I'm going to be playing pretty safe and just basically going for a taunt anytime I have Tapu Fini in, just to make sure that it doesn't come in and set up. He goes Jellicent here, which is kind of interesting, I guess. I don't really want Tapu Fini to take an unnecessary hit here, so I'm just going to go ahead and go hard into Beedrill here because I can actually take a Shadow Ball pretty easily. I can take a Scald and I don't have to worry about a burn because Misty Terrain, and both Jellicents are pretty passive anyway, so I don't think he'd really have a significant amount of attack investment. Instead, he does even better, and I just go straight into Beedrill versus Clefable, which is pretty much the perfect scenario, I guess. It would have been really nice to U-turn here because there's not very many universes in which he actually stays in, but I'll do the next best thing and just go for a knockoff here. He goes Jellicent, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, his Ghost type also has a Colbur Berry, so it doesn't really do that much. Again, U-turn here would have been nice, but because I don't have U-turn, I'm just going to have to hard switch. Something you're going to notice about this game is there is a ridiculous amount of hard switching, as well as Volt Switch and U-turn. So I kind of have to pause pretty much between every turn. He shows Recover there, which is kind of cool, I guess. Just means that he's more Wally than a sneaky offensive set, which could have actually done a decent amount, I guess. So I'm just going to go for the U-turn here because there's no reason for me not to, honestly. He goes hard Heatran. Obviously, I'm just going to go into my main counter for that and go Donphan. He doesn't show leftovers, which means he's not like a sub leftovers pressure or like set or anything like that. He could be substitute still, but I'm just going to go ahead and go for, or I'm going to show Earthquake here. Sorry, I'm not going to show Earthquake here because I'm looking at my notes now. So obviously, since he's not Air Balloon, which is what I was trying to say the entire time, Earthquake kills here. So he's going to switch out, so I'm actually going to go for a Toxic on whatever comes in because nothing else really appreciates it. If it's Clefable, then I guess it appreciates it if it's Magic Guard, because then it can't be paralyzed or anything like that. But since it's Electros, it's actually kind of decent because I kind of want to wear this thing down. Electros isn't like particularly bulky, but since it's electric or pure electric type with Levitate, it actually doesn't have any weaknesses, and it can kind of stick around a lot longer than you expect it to, despite its stats. So getting a Toxic on this thing's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I am gonna read a Giga Drain here because I feel like that's the main reason he'd go into Electros. But he reads me switching out and goes for a Volt Switch, which is pretty nice. And then it's basically the lead scenario that I thought the game was going to be, Ambipom versus Decidueye. I'll just go for my play here and burn my Colbur Berry because the only other thing I could really see having knockoff on his team at this point is Sableye. And a Sableye knockoff shouldn't really be doing that much because Sableye is not very strong. So he shows Life Orb here, which is actually like pretty crucial as I go for a U-turn. Because I don't exactly know what set he is until then. But since he's Life Orb, that means he does not outspeed my Dodrio. He also doesn't outspeed my Beedrill, but because I don't have U-turn and I know that he's going to go straight into Jellicent, there's not really any reason for me to go to Beedrill right now. Like if I go Beedrill, there's like really absolutely no reason for him to go to Jellicent, and then I just kind of have to waste a turn doubling again. So I'm going to go to Dodrio here. Odds are he's going to switch out because why would I go into Dodrio, who's base 110, and I believe Ambipom's base 115? Like, why would I go into that unless I was like pretty confident I outsped? And if he was Adamant or something, I guess I could have potentially outsped anyway. But I wouldn't really risk that ever. So I'm just going to go for a Brave Bird here because it's a pretty safe neutral play. I don't expect him to go Heatran because if I am Scarf Dodrio with Jump Kick, he's basically just switching into one fighting weakness from another. So I'm just going to go for a Brave Bird, and I actually get the kill. I guess he didn't expect me to be Scarfed, but now he goes Sableye because he realizes I am a physical set and just wants to get the Prankster Will-O-Wisp off. And I really have no reason not to go into Tapu Fini here. He reads that and goes for a knockoff here, but as like the worst thing that really happens there is that I lose my leftovers, honestly. Like, it doesn't really do any damage. So no harm, no foul, I guess. Again, I'm just going to go for a taunt because I really don't want this to happen. I do not want him to get a double into Tapu Fini. I know it's kind of predictable for me to just kind of spam taunt, but at this point he has a lot of like really slow passive stuff anyway. So I really didn't want Clefable to come in and be like a Calm Mind stored power set and just kind of like wreck through my team. I doubt he would have had that set because Jirachi like quad resist it, so I don't think it would have really been that good, but Clefable's scary and I don't want to mess around with it, especially since my Jirachi doesn't actually have steel coverage this week. It was basically only really good for Clefable and nothing else, so not really much reason to bring it in my opinion. So I'm actually going to go hard Beedrill here because I can basically take any offensive hit that he really wants to go for. He goes Jellicent, so I just had to end up switching out again. Unfortunately, the only switch I really had that like wanted to take this was Jirachi. Tapu Fini is proving to be way too important in this game to just kind of let it get unnecessary damage. Donphan doesn't really do anything to this besides Toxic it, which I guess could be nice, but it wouldn't really actually help me that much because he'd probably just double into Jellicent or Electros reading the Toxic, or Heatran and then back out, but that would be a little bit riskier. Beedrill could take a hit, but again, because I would have to set up a Swords Dance to really do anything, it's not really worth it. And he resists Poison Jab, so it doesn't really matter that much. So I'm going to go Jirachi here, and as you can see, that's a pretty solid 2-hit KO. It did less than 50%, but knowing my luck with rolls, the next one's going to do more than 50%, so I assume it's going to be a 2-hit KO here and just try to get the damage off that I can. In hindsight, I actually probably should have gone for a substitute here, because as you're about to see, I go for a Charge Beam, get the boost, but then get disabled. As he goes for a recover and gets back up to full. If I would have played this turn slightly differently and went for a substitute on his recover and just watched recover fail or whatever, I would have been able to be in a position where I could have potentially set up another Charge Beam. But because I got curse bodied anyway, it didn't really matter, I guess. So assuming that the next Shadow Ball is going to kill, and that I just got lucky on the first roll or whatever, I'm just going to go for Z-Psychic now. It's unfortunately not going to kill because Jellicent's super bulky, but, you know, I did damage to this thing and got it in range to actually revenge it with Beedrill. I'll just go for the knockoff here because if he switched into anything, it wouldn't have really mattered, I guess. And then he goes Sableye again. Again, there's not really any reason for me not to go Tapu Fini, but at this point I don't want to play predictably enough for him to get a free switch into something that could actually hit Tapu Fini. With how switch heavy these first 18 turns can be, I have to kind of start predicting double opportunities as a possible play, like pretty much every turn. So safe play is for me to just go Tapu Fini, block Will-O-Wisp, take whatever hit he wants to go for, and then just probably get a Surf off and just do damage or something. But I don't actually expect him to stay in here. So I make my middle ground play into Decidueye to try to get my U-turn off. He goes for a Will-O-Wisp and misses, which is unfortunate on his part. But I guess Will-O-Wisp is 85% accurate, I guess. So this is the first turn where I feel like I kind of made a poor play, in my opinion. I didn't really want to, again, go into Tapu Fini reading the Will-O-Wisp because I thought that he was kind of baiting me so I could switch into something else. So I end up staying in here just to go for damage reading his double, but instead he just stays in and Will-O-Wisp me again. And since I'm a physical Decidueye, that actually kind of matters a lot. I think this is the first time I'd actually done damage to Decidueye, or to Sableye though, so I finally see that it's leftovers after a pretty long time. But now Decidueye's burned and I don't actually have any way to remove status on my team, so Brave Bird's going to be doing a lot less damage. At this point he probably doesn't have Rock, so Defog's kind of useless, so at this point I'm kind of just like taking hits pretty much, which is fine, but whatever. I'm going to U-turn finally, predicting him to switch. Because he didn't, I know he's going for a knockoff, so I'll just go Tapu Fini here. Again, it does absolutely nothing, and I just get to get damage off on something finally. I could have probably done this turn a turn ago and blocked myself from getting hit. I actually forget that I go for the taunt first before going for the Surf, but again, I do not want in any way, shape, or form Clefable coming in and setting up on me. I'm still pretty terrified of that thing because I haven't seen what it does at all. I have a general idea of what everything else is, but Clefable is still pretty terrifying at this point. So I'm going to switch out. I don't want to go Donphan because I predicted Giga Drain here. Acid Spray would have actually done absolutely nothing to Donphan, but it's fine. As he hard switches, I actually go for a Roost here just on the off chance that I would have lived, because I'm pretty sure I would have lived a Volt Switch even at -2. But sorry, I'm watching football too. But because he switched out, I actually get Roost up and go up to a pretty decent amount of health. I don't want to take a hit here, obviously, with my Decidueye, because at this point I can actually wall. I can use it as a status blocker, and it still kind of walls Electros pretty well. I'm not seeing Flamethrower or anything on it yet, so I feel pretty safe in just switching to Decidueye whenever I need to. So I'm going to switch into Fini, as he shows his Heatran set finally and goes for a Flame Charge, which is actually pretty scary. I realized that he wasn't like the sub-toxic Magma Storm set or whatever. I realized he probably wasn't Scarfed based on the damage that he was doing, and I realized that he didn't really have like a ton of, I don't actually remember if I had seen a move from him at this point, but I still kind of just predicted a fire type attack to win into Fini. I didn't predict Flame Charge because now he actually outspeeds my Tapu Fini, which is an issue, but because he switched out the first time, I'm actually just going to go for a Surf here. As you're going to see, that was a mistake because I should have tried to scout for the Gracian Z Solar Beam. I go Dodrio here because I'm just going to revenge here, but I actually kind of want to talk about this first. So, back on turn 22, so a couple of turns ago or whatever, when I had Tapu Fini in and went for the Surf, him switching out, I assumed meant that he didn't actually have anything to hit my Tapu Fini. And I could have taken Flash Cannon. I could have taken basically anything else he went for besides a Grassing Z Solar Beam. In hindsight, I probably should have just doubled back into Decidueye. At worst case scenario, sacked it off and then went back into Tapu Fini, or I could have went into Donphan, because Heatran can only run Grassing Z Bloom Doom if it's Solar Beam, and since Solar Beam's a 2-turn move, even though Heatran outspeeds and would technically be able to kill, I should be able to kill it off with a Surf or an Earthquake or something like that if it stayed in. Instead, I decided to go Dodrio here because it was a better like neutral ground play to everything else. If I locked myself into pretty much anything here, I could 2-hit KO anything that comes in. Because of that, I don't think that he wants to go Sableye because he's proven to kind of really badly want to Will-O-Wisp stuff. So I actually feel pretty safe even though it's risky. I feel pretty safe going for a Jump Kick and locking myself in. He doesn't want to switch Clefable in on a Brave Bird, which is the only move I've actually shown so far. He doesn't really want to switch Electros in on a Frustration or a Return or something, because I'm pretty sure that's a 2-hit KO too. So I feel pretty safe going for a Jump Kick here because it pretty solidly knocks out Heatran, assuming I land, which I don't. Because I missed Jump Kick and he goes for a Lava Bloom here, I basically ended up sacking a pretty important member of my team. Like I was saying, Dodrio pretty much comes in and 2-hit KOs anything left on the team. I think even if it gets burned by Sableye, it's still a pretty solid like 3-hit KO, because Sableye doesn't really have very good bulk. So that sucked. I played it incorrectly because I should have just went Heatran, or I should have just went Donphan even after sacking Tapu Fini. Like I'll just go ahead and say that the Grassing Z Solar Beam was a really, really good bring by Crazy, and like admit that he kind of caught me off guard by that. But I played the next turn wrong by sending in Dodrio in the first place because I risked a 95% accurate move instead of just going for a 100% accurate move in Earthquake and giving him the switch into Electros if I had to. I didn't really mind him switching into Electros because I had more things for Electros than I did for Heatran if it was a Flame Charge Grassing Z Solar Beam set, but I didn't really expect that set, so good prep on Crazy's part here. So I go Donphan, and as I've kind of talked about, I'm just going to go for the Earthquake even though it gives him the switch into Electros because Electros is pretty weak at this point. I haven't shown Protect, so I'm just going to get a little bit of extra toxic damage off. But unfortunately that toxic damage actually puts him in range of his Wiki Berry, which puts him back out of range of me being able to kill him easily. So at this point I have to kind of go into Decidueye anyway, predicting another Giga Drain. He reads me well and just goes for a Volt Switch, and at this point I kind of feel like I have to sack anyway, but because I'm max defense I actually take that pretty well, and get my free U-turn into Mega Beedrill. Obviously I wouldn't really go into a Mega Beedrill unless I had Drill Run, but I'm actually thinking ahead here finally again. If I go for a Drill Run and best case scenario actually he goes into Electros, after the toxic damage I'm pretty much guaranteed to kill with a Poison Jab. I think it's like a 80% 80 or 85% like chance for me to OHKO, so I'm willing to take that chance at this at this point in the game. So I go for a Drill Run here because it would have killed Heatran, but after toxic damage this is almost guaranteed to kill Electros. Luckily I get the roll this time and Electros drops, and then he goes Sableye here, and at this point I have to be pretty careful about what switches in because I feel like he's going to go for a Will-O-Wisp, and if I let Beedrill get burned and I'm not able to set up a Swords Dance, then I kind of lose at this point. At least if like Donphan gets burnt or something later in the game, I can Toxic Stall some stuff if I need to. So I'm gonna go Decidueye here, and at this point I actually probably should have went for a Roost just to keep Decidueye around for a little bit longer. I wasn't really thinking about Decidueye's longevity at this point because I didn't want to give Heatran setup fodder. But as we can see, as long as I get Beedrill in before Heatran gets to +2, I'm normally okay. And if I get Donphan in at all, basically Heatran can't really touch me. I can at least take one hit of pretty much anything if I need to. But unfortunately I just decided to sack Decidueye here. In hindsight, this is actually probably one of the bigger misplays of the game, and I didn't even realize it at the time. But sacking my willow fodder, I guess, if you even want to call it that, basically forced me to take a burn on either Beedrill or Donphan. Hindsight, I actually probably should have let the burn go onto Beedrill because I was Swords Dance, so I could have just switched into Beedrill, kind of looked like I had given up the game and set up a Swords Dance, gotten back up to neutral, and then not really had to worry about the Sableye much at all, because I could have just kind of set up on it a little bit farther, because as far as I know, it didn't actually have anything to touch Beedrill. But I end up going Donphan here because, like I was saying, I can at least Toxic Stall stuff, and it's a little bit easier for me to navigate with Beedrill not being burned. I can at least stall this thing out because my Toxic's going to be doing a lot more than his burn long term. And Earthquake still does 20% to Clefable, which isn't really like a lot, but is kind of important to note, I guess. So here I have to kind of go hard Beedrill. Even if he sets up or whatever, I just have to come in and hit this thing with a Poison Jab, basically. He shows he's Aromatherapy, which is kind of disappointing because that means he's been like a really passive Clefable this entire time, pretty much. And I could have probably been a little bit more aggressive about playing other stuff on his team, knowing that he's a little bit more passive than I thought he was. So here, Poison Jab, guarantee Oko, unless he's a Kebia Berry, the poison reducing berry, in which case it's a 2-hit KO. But I don't actually want to go for Poison Jab here, even though it's like gonna do a ton of damage to Clefable, because I read his double here, specifically into Heatran, and then probably doubling back out into something else when I went for a drill run. But I didn't want to go for Poison Jab because Heatran's immune to it and Sableye resists it pretty well, and can just come in and Will-O-Wisp me, and then I don't really have anything to do for this, and then it'd just be like kind of us rotating back and forth between stuff, trying to get Beedrill burned basically on his end, and then trying to get Beedrill to kill everything on my end. So I'm actually going to go for a Drill Run because Drill Run into Poison Jab still kills even if he is Kebia Berry. And then obviously if he doubles into Heatran, it just completely wipes it out, and if he doubles into Sableye, it actually, that into Poison Jab I believe also kills. I would still probably double into Donphan, but it's nice to know that it killed anyway. So I go for a Drill Run here, and I miss again. That's two 95% accurate moves that missed this game. I'm not really mad about Jump Kick missing because I feel like I played that situation incorrectly anyway, and kind of put myself in a situation where I was hoping that I didn't miss and then didn't. This one I'm a little bit more upset about, to be honest, because it did kind of matter significantly, and I feel like it was the right play. I don't think he would have actually doubled into Heatran because I pretty clearly showed Drill Run already. But if in the off chance that he actually did, or if he went Sableye, which is kind of a more likely double in my opinion, I feel like it would have been fine. And even if Drill Run landed and I took the Psychic or whatever, I still should have been fine because as you're about to see, I would have at least done 20% to Clefable. I think it was something around like 40 to 50% with Drill Run. But because I missed, the game's pretty much over. I'm just gonna keep this. I'm just gonna keep this going as I try to reduce differential a little bit. I am willing to Toxic Stall this thing if I need to because differential is very much mattering for me at this point. So sorry, the end of this game's a little bit stally, but you know what? I feel like I kind of needed to at this point. Burn's not really doing that much to me, and Earthquake's actually doing more to him than his knockoff is to me, even though I'm burned, which is kind of funny. Donphan's just a lot more offensive of a wall, I guess. I read his knockoff there, and I went for a Protect as he went for a Recover, which kind of sucked. But I'm just going to keep going for Earthquake, and as I pointed out earlier, it did just enough to actually kill off Clefable there. And if I would have lived, that Flash Cannon with a little bit more Spadef investment, I think it would have actually still been, like, I don't think it was an Oko at this point, but I do think it was a pretty solid 2-hit KO. But anyway, I lose 2-0. Good game, Crazy. He played really well. I got a little unlucky with a couple of 95% accurate moves missing, but overall, I would say this is probably the best game I've played this season. It's the one that involved a shit ton of thought for 47 turns, and for most of those 47 turns, I feel like I made the optimal play. Crazy's a very good player, so I was pretty happy to even have it be this close and to actually get to the point where I felt like I was a couple of misses away from winning. I think I could have played Dodrio a lot better this game because Dodrio did do a lot to his team, and unfortunately I kind of just threw it away by risking it on a 95% accurate move, which kind of sucks. Beedrill missing Drill Run was a little bit bigger in my opinion because, like I kind of pointed out, it was an overall very good play for everything that he had left. Even reading the possible berry that he did end up having, it was a better play. Like, if he didn't have the Kevia berry, it absolutely would have been the wrong play to just go for Drill Run in the first place. But I kind of figured that he might have something like that because Beedrill was a pretty obvious threat to Clefable. So for the rest of the season, it's actually going to be pretty tricky for me to make playoffs at this point. I basically have to win out and get a little bit lucky, which is possible, but it's going to be pretty tricky. Next week we take on the Shakespeare Vulpixes, coached by Sammii Strange. It's actually the first time I will have ever battled her. She's new to the league and took over a team that dropped out twice actually this season. As you're about to see, I have no idea why that team dropped out twice because it was actually a very strongly drafted roster. But we're glad Sammie's here because she seems like she's a lot nicer than the people we had before, no offense. But at least, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now and stop talking shit about people because I didn't mean to do that. But thank you guys for watching. Drop a like, subscribe, and have a good one. And I will see you next week. Bye. What's up guys, Sio here with week 8 of the NES. I know I am super far behind, so I don't know when I'm actually going to be uploading this. But this week we are taking on the Shakespeare Vulpixes, coached by Sammii. She is actually the third coach, I believe, to take over this specific team this season. It just kind of seems like the 16th person in our league, I guess, has kind of been cycling in and out. So we're hoping Sammii can kind of stabilize that because this team is actually really scary. I'm not really 100% sure why 2 coaches stopped using it because honestly it's a pretty intimidating team. And as far as I know, Sammie's a pretty good battler even though she hasn't actually won in the league yet as far as I know. So I'm not taking this battle lightly because it's a very good team and opponent that I'm not super familiar with, so I kind of have to play safe, I guess. Getting into my team before I preview what she brought and what she left behind, I guess. We have Hariyama with Flame Orb, Guts, Fake Out, Bullet Punch, Close Combat, and Earthquake. It's pretty standard, honestly. Max HP, max attack. I figured I didn't really need anything super special because once Mega Medicham is dealt with, or at least in range of Fake Out into Bullet Punch, her team kind of gets destroyed by Hariyama. Basically anytime it comes in and clicks a move, it can kind of 2-hit KO anything that comes in, as long as I go for Close Combat into something else, basically. I have to also kind of weaken Nidoqueen a little bit, if possible. I can Fake Out, chip it down pretty easily, but it does resist Bullet Punch, so I have to be careful about that. Next up is Tapu Fini, who is actually making her season debut, I guess. I ended up trading Epsilon for it as of last week because I realized I needed a little bit more of a defensive presence on the team. I was in the middle of rehauling this team. I'm going to be honest, I'm actually post-recording this as of week 11, so I don't exactly remember at what stage in my team rebuild I was at here. But I'm pretty sure the trade for Tapu Fini was one of the last things that I did, if not the last thing that I did. But I needed Tapu Fini because I needed a more defensive presence on the team than Azumarill, who was kind of redundant with Hariyama and Mega Beedrill and a couple of the other hard hitters that I had. Azumarill honestly fit Epsilon's roster better because he kind of had a bunch of slow bulky stuff and I had a bunch of fast hard hitting stuff. So I ended up being able to trade Tapu Fini for him, which is a pretty honestly win-win trade in my opinion. Tapu Fini fits my roster a little bit better than it fit his, I think, and I can use the bulk very, very much. And Tapu Fini has really good bulk, both physically and especially, so it's nice to be able to kind of take a hit on this team finally. So Tapu Fini, making the debut, has Leftovers with Defog, Moonblast, Taunt, and Surf. A lot of defense, a lot of HP, and enough speed to outspeed a standard Manaphy, I believe. One without any like significant speed investment to be able to hit it with Taunt. It also allows me to outspeed bulkier Mega Medicham and hit with a Moonblast if I need to. As well as outspeeding most Entei's as long as it's not going for extreme speed, and be able to hit it with a Surf. Surf kind of decimates like half the team, so it's nice to have that this week, I guess. Next up is Bio, the Mega Beedrill with Poison Jab, Knockoff, U-Turn, and a move I really wanted to bring this week is Fell Stinger. For those of you that don't know, Fell Stinger is a base 50 bug type move, but if you manage to get a kill with it, it drastically raises your attack, so it raises it by 3 stages. So it's basically like the physical attack version of a Tail Glow if you manage to get a kill with it. I didn't really need anything on the 4th move. I like Drill Run could have worked for a couple of things and would have hit a couple of things actually pretty hard in hindsight. But Fell Stinger also works really well, and honestly, Fell Stinger Poison Jab, like if I can weaken Rhydon at all, like kind of tears through a lot as well. I also have to weaken Nidoqueen, so you know, in hindsight, Drill Run probably would have been pretty nice. But that's hindsight, week 11, looking back on week 8 CO. Anyway, next up is Jirachi, holding the Fairy MZ to power up Fairy MZ Moonblast for Mega Medicham, as well as a Latios that didn't come that I was pretty terrified of. In addition to Moonblast, I also have Energy Balls and Headbutt and U-Turn. I kind of wanted to be mixed just in case she brought very specially bulky stuff. I wanted to be able to hit Zen Headbutt and potentially flinch stuff if I needed to. I don't really love relying on Jirachi flinches, but it's a nice option to have, I guess. And nothing really super special with that spread. I am Jolly max speed to be able to speed tie at worst with a super offensive Manaphy and a super offensive Mega Medicham. I figured I wanted to at least give myself at worst a 50-50 chance to be able to hit those things. Next up is also a new team member, Rotom-Heat. I picked up in free agency. Gonna be honest, week 11, I don't remember who I dropped for Rotom-Heat. I believe it was I'm gonna pause. It was Meloetta. I totally didn't have to pause and go check or anything. Yeah, but I dropped Meloetta for Rotom-Heat because I kind of needed electric and fire on my team, to be perfectly honest. Both typings were sorely missed on my team. It was actually on Beard's roster until this week. I feel kind of bad because he's been like looking for a trade partner as of week 8, and I ended up picking up the one thing that he ended up dropping, so sorry about that. But I really wanted Rotom-Heat because I needed electric type, I needed fire type, and I needed a little bit of bulky pivot and support. I feel like Rotom will be a nice addition to my team, especially since I can use it as a good choice scarfer like I'm using it this week, with Volt Switch, Overheat, HP Ice, and Thunderbolt. A little bit of HP, enough speed to be able to outspeed anything that I need to outspeed, to be honest. She doesn't have the fastest team. Like, her fastest thing on her team is obviously Alola Ninetales, and Alola Ninetales normally doesn't really run Choice Scarf ever. So outside of the priority she has from Entei and Mega Medicham most likely, her fastest thing on her team is probably going to be a Scarfed, if it's even Scarfed, Nidoqueen. So I should be able to outrun everything pretty easily with a Choice Scarf, Rotom-Heat. And finally we have Goodra, Assault Vest Gooey, in case I need to take a physical hit and slow something down like Mega Medicham to be able to revenge kill it a little bit easier. Assault Vest with Draco Meteor, Earthquake, Thunderbolt, and Ice Beam. A lot of HP, mixed attack, just to be able to do a little bit of damage to stuff, more geared towards special attack, and then a little bit of special defense just to get in there. So 8 minutes in, she ended up bringing Alola Ninetales, Manaphy, Entei, Mega Medicham, Rhydon, and Nidoqueen. So right away, I'm kind of wishing I would have brought Rocks on Jirachi. I wish I would have brought it over Zen Headbutt or something, because I didn't really need Zen Headbutt quite as much. But Rocks would have been nice to be able to wear down Entei and Alola Ninetales, as well as get chip damage on pretty much everything else. But since I don't have Rocks, I'm just going to go ahead and lead Hariyama and get a Fake Out. Before I get into that, I guess, she left behind Snorlax, Durant, Ampharos, Latios, and Whimsicott. So I ended up bringing a lot of fighting coverage on my team, even though it doesn't really look like she has like a ton of fighting weaknesses, because I was pretty scared of Snorlax. Curselax ended up doing quite a lot to my team actually, so I kind of wanted to be careful for that. Durant also kind of posed an interesting speed tier that I had to prepare for, because it was like the fastest thing on her team that I had thought that she might bring. Latios is also a possible bring, and I believe it's 1 speed point faster or 2 or whatever. But I figured that she probably wouldn't want to bring it just because Mega Medicham hits a little bit harder. And I could just bring a Choice Scarf Zoroark and be able to hit both of those things pretty decently, I guess. I didn't, obviously, but I could have. So, anyway, as I was saying, I'm just going to go ahead and lead a Fake Out with Hariyama to be able to get my Flame Orb off. She ends up leading Manaphy, which is fine, I guess. I'll just get the Fake Out to get my damage, kind of scout if I need to. She's hard switches into Medicham, which I'm also okay with, because that ends up doing 24%. I don't really want to stay in and take a Psychic type hit at all, so I'm going to go ahead and harden Jirachi, even though High Jump Kick would absolutely decimate me here. So she goes for the Zen Headbutt and does 18%. I guess I should explain this too. If you're wondering why everything is randomly named like doggo nicknames or whatever, this was Bork Week in the NES. I kind of forgot about that until now. But basically everything had to be a Drain Punch here from Mega Medicham. If it goes for High Jump Kick, that's fine. I'll just end up doubling into something else. But I might as well try to fire off my Z Moonblast right here. I don't see her switching right away, just because I think that she thinks that she'll be able to kill. But because I have good natural bulk, I'm actually able to survive here. She does go for the Drain Punch, and I do live. Not by a lot, but I do live. And I am able to actually OHKO here with the Z Moonblast, which is nice. I would like to point out, by the way, that she actually had to be max speed Jolly to even get that Drain Punch off in the first place. So at worst, I was risking a 50-50 chance there, and I just kind of got outsped or whatever. So here, I do not want Manaphy to come in and set up a Tail Glow on my switch out and then just kind of punch my team for forever. So I'm just going to go for an Energy Ball and sack off Jirachi. Of course, she also wins the speed tie, meaning that she's actually Jolly Max Speed. Jolly Max Speed Manaphy here. So there's a part of me that's actually kind of scared that she might be a Scarfed Manaphy. It'd be really weird, but it would actually outrun my Mega Beedrill. So I guess I could see it coming potentially. It would be, again, not the most common thing, but it would actually give her like a pretty fast thing right here. So I'm actually going to try to scout for that here by switching into Beedrill, but then doubling back out into Goodra. My plan for this is if she ends up staying in and going for Surf, I'll know she's Scarfed, because why else would she stay in and go for Surf? I'm pretty sure U-Turn's still a 2-hit KO, so she doesn't want to really take that damage for no reason. And if she's not Scarfed, she doesn't outspeed me, so she wouldn't really want to stay in. But if she does stay in and goes for an attack, it's likely that she's Scarfed or has like something up her sleeve to be able to hit me. So I'm going to hard out into Goodra, and she ends up actually going for a Psychic, which is interesting. U-Turn would have done quite a lot of damage, but the fact that she went for Psychic there shows me that she does have coverage, at least to hit Beedrill, so I can't stay in and just go for Poison Jab or something like that. I do have to kind of pivot around until I'll actually be able to pick it off. Sorry. So after she showed Psychic here, I just decided to try to get damage off on this thing, because I figured she might want to stay in for some reason and try to Tail Glow against me. If she ended up going Alola Ninetales, which she did, obviously, I can go into Rotom-Heat here and take a Blizzard fairly well. Not perfectly, but I didn't want to go straight into Tapu Fini, who's a little bit more bulky, because I wasn't sure if she had Freeze Dry. Spoilers, I don't think she actually does. I think she ends up having Blizzard, Aurora Veil, Moonblast. She may have actually had Freeze Dry, I just never really went for it, I guess. But Rotom-Heat ends up taking the Blizzard fairly well, and I get to threaten with an Overheat here. She has like a million answers for Overheat right now, so she can kind of go into anything, honestly. But the most important thing is I don't predict her to stay in here, so I can pretty safely double out into Tapu Fini here. Tapu Fini allows me to basically counter anything as long as she doesn't go hard Nidoqueen here. I was predicting either a Rhydon switch or a Manaphy switch or potentially an Entei switch if she wanted to be aggressive and just try to take the Overheat that way. She ends up going for the Entei, which was a good play on her part, I guess, because I wasn't going to be going for anything that would have really done significant damage, I guess. So the fact that she comes in and is shiny shows me that she's probably Extreme Speed Entei. Just in case you were wondering, I guess, Entei only gets Extreme Speed from an event, and in that event it was shiny. So Enteis pretty much have to be shiny all the time. So I figure this thing probably has Extreme Speed. I start running calcs to try to make sure I stay out of Choice Banded Extreme Speed range. I'm not 100% sure that's what this set is, but I just kind of want to play for worst case scenario here, I guess. So I can predict here, but I'm just going to go for a Surf because it kind of hits everything but Alola Ninetales pretty hard. And if she ends up going into Manaphy, I can still go for a Moonblast if I want to, or just double out into something else now that I see that it's probably not a Tail Glow set. Unless it's like Tail Glow Scald Psychic, which would be kind of interesting coverage, I guess. So predicting an Energy Ball to be able to deal with Tapu Fini, I end up doubling into Rotom-Heat here, end up taking the Psychic, and end up actually getting a Spadef drop, which means I can't stay in. It's kind of risky for me to go for a Volt Switch here or any kind of like electric type attack since she does have 2 ground types. But I'm actually going to go ahead and try to make a play here because first of all, I'm prepared to sack Rotom-Heat at this point. But second of all, I need to just make sure that I get damage off on Manaphy. Right now, Manaphy is still looking like a little bit more of a threat than anything else on the team, and I'm still not 100% sure if she has Tail Glow. So I don't want her to try to Tail Glow on me here and then have a situation where Goodra is the only thing that can take a hit on a team, and then I just have to fake out spam and sack stuff until Manaphy dies. So I'm just going to go for a Thunderbolt here, even though she has 2 ground types. I end up getting it off and almost killing this thing. She ends up killing off Beethoven right there. But then, good news is, I know she's not Scarf, so I get to go into Beedrill here. Because of my ridiculous coverage. I do actually have Fell Stinger here, and really, really, really badly want to go for it, because if I get the +3, a +3 knockoff will actually manage to kill Rhydon, and if she's not Choice Scarf, it may actually kill Nidoqueen as well. It's at this point that I really wish I had Drill Run, because I would just be able to nuke like half of her team, but hindsight's 20/20 on this one, I guess. I should have probably seen that one before, but that's okay. So I'm just going to go for a Fell Stinger here. Unfortunately, she makes the good play and ends up going out into Rhydon, who ends up taking it pretty well. So I just get to U-turn out, and it only does a little bit more damage. I'll U-turn out into Tapu Fini because I'm pretty much max defense, so I actually managed to take that Earthquake pretty well. Again, threaten stuff out with a Surf, and because Manaphy's in range, I could kill it off with the Surf here. I can also just kill it off with anything else that I switch into, so I might as well get Goodra in here. I don't really need Goodra quite as much as before, so I can actually start firing off Earthquakes here. I didn't fire off an Earthquake the first time Alola Ninetales switched in because I wanted her to feel kind of safe to switch it in. But Earthquake is a 3-hit KO against Alola Ninetales, so as long as I can basically get it in one more time, and keep Goodra at least a little bit healthy, I guess, I should be able to actually tank a Blizzard. I'm kind of running out of range though, so I basically need to get this thing out of here as soon as possible. But the fact that I got an Earthquake off on it basically means that I can either chip it away a little bit easier with Hariyama, or I can get a pretty easy kill with Beedrill. So although Alola Ninetales is still pretty scary with setting up the hail and stuff, it is kind of looking like a little bit less of a threat now. So predicting the Moonblast and knowing that I can live a Blizzard, I actually go hard Beedrill here. I don't live a Blizzard super well, but because I am a little bit bulk invested, I actually live it a little bit better than other Beedrills, I guess. And I can go for a Poison Jab here and go ahead and completely kill off I'll kill off Ninetales here. Again, Drill Run probably would have been nice because, as you can see, she goes right on, and that does nothing. But I get really lucky and get a Poison, and between the Poison and the Hail, this actually puts her perfectly in range. I did the calc and U-turn to a max HP, max SpDef Rhydon, which is what most Rhydons are because they have a Violite and they don't really have very good SpDef at all. But U-turn does like a minimum of 28%, and as you can see, she's at 27%. So I can just go for a U-turn here, kill off Rhydon, get a little bit lucky. Should have probably had Drill Run and killed it off a little bit easier, but that's okay. I end up taking Hail and Burn, but I'm in with Hariyama, which threatens out or makes sure that a level 9 doesn't come back in immediately, basically. Since Nidoqueen comes in, I don't really want Hariyama to take this hit right now because it's kind of looking like a very good late game cleaner. If I can keep it a little bit healthier, it should still be able to take a hit from Entei. And it can Bullet Punch Alolan Ninetales, and Manaphy's so far dead that it can Bullet Punch that and fake out it as well. Judging by that damage, it looks like she's probably Life Orb though, because that actually still did a pretty decent amount of damage to Goodra. She goes into Alolan Ninetales here as I get the Earthquake off, so now I think I could just go for a fake out if I need to. I don't even have to go for Bullet Punches, which is nice. She does go for the Blizzard, and since Tapu Fini's very bulky, I'm able to take that pretty well. Unfortunately, this is where things actually start getting scary. I was just going to kill it off with a Surf in case she switched into anything, or in case she was just trying to get damage off on me or something, but the fact that she set up Aurora Veil there and lived actually kind of put a wrench in my plans here for a bit, because this makes it a lot harder for me to kill both Nidoqueen and Entei. And I don't know her item, right? Yeah, I don't know, never mind, nope, I'm dumb. I read my leftovers as her leftovers, so I don't know her item, so I'm going to assume that she's actually Light Clay at this point, which means that 8 turns of Aurora Veil means that my offense actually has a very hard time breaking through her offense. So I had to check this mid-battle because I kind of forgot if it did or not. But I do have to defog here, even though there's no hazards on the field, because I need to get rid of the screen. Otherwise my team doesn't do enough damage to actually kill her off here. So defog does get rid of Aurora Veil, thankfully. Manaphy's starting to get back up to the point where a Surf's not going to kill it off, so I just go for a Moonblast, finally get rid of this thing, because I'm kind of tired of it sitting around. In comes Nidoqueen. I'm just going to go ahead and sack off Goodra here, because it doesn't really do anything this game. She ends up setting up late game Rocks here, which is a very, very good play on her part, because now Beedrill can't come back in. And the fact that Beedrill can't come back in means that I have one less like intentional hit on something, or one less knockoff to go for, which is kind of the more important thing at this point. So again, very good play on her part. I went for the Earthquake because it's basically killing anything that comes in at this point, or at least doing pretty significant damage to it. If a Alolan Ninetales tried to switch in, as you saw, it was in range to die from another one. As you saw, it's an easy 2-hit KO on Nidoqueen, and it was probably going to be a 2-hit KO if I remember right on Entei. I wasn't actually expecting to live, I was just expecting to get Sludge Waves. So good play on her part to set up Rocks before going for the Sludge Wave, because now Beedrill's useless. Haria comes in, and luckily, after my calc, Fake Out into Bullet Punch still kills from here. I think Bullet Punch did like 18% or so, if I remember right. Or maybe a little bit more, because for some reason I'm dumb and always think ground resist steel even though it doesn't. So she goes into Entei here, and I realize that I actually have to be pretty careful with how I play this endgame. I was just going to go straight for a close combat or an Earthquake to try to do damage to this thing, but I realized if it's Choice Scarf, or if it's Choice Banded Sacred Fire, it actually has a chance to kill from here.
I can actually live in extreme speed if she's just trying to go for extreme speed and then kill me off with Hail or Alolan Ninetales or something like that. But I have to play it safe and just sack off Beedrill here. So Beedrill goes down. She ends up going for the Sacred Fire, so I assume she's banded. Luckily, Tapu Fini is at just enough health after Rocks to be able to live a Sacred Fire from here. So I'm able to get the Surf off. Luckily, because of leftovers, I'm actually, spoilers, able to live this extreme speed as well, which allows me to go for a Surf here, and then Fake Out should kill from here, especially after Hail damage. So it was a very, very, very close game. Great battle, Sammii. I knew your team was going to be tough, but I'm glad that Hariyama kind of pulled through for me. I believe we got like 3 kills that game, if I remember right. But anyway, I know that battle was a little bit ramblier, I guess, than my other post-coms. Truth be told, I have not had any time to post-com lately. As you can tell by me being like 3 weeks late with this one and 4 weeks late with like pretty much every other one. I'm pretty sure I haven't even rendered past like week 6 as of me recording this one or whatever. But the battles have actually been pretty good this season. As I recommitted to kind of redesigning my roster this season, I kind of started to get more into the league. I was kind of falling out of it once I realized that range just wasn't working for me. And I was about to throw in the season, but after battling Epsilon and after battling Sammii, I kind of started to feel my team a little bit more and realized that I actually had a pretty decent team now. I feel like I actually have a little bit of bulk to work with, and I actually feel like I have a little bit of team chemistry, I guess. So, again, GG. I was pretty happy with how that one went. Next week, as of week 9, I guess, we are going to play the person that is next on my schedule. I'm totally not stalling and trying to load this on my phone because I'm unprepared. After the Vulpixes, we take on Beard and the Aqua Jets. So that'll be a fun one. Beard and I always play pretty close, and he has a habit of getting in my head sometimes, so I'm pretty excited to get into that one. So have a good night, guys, or day, if you're watching this during the day, I guess. And I will see you next time. Bye.